Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back again. I am so excited you're here for Awakened Healing podcast with me, your host, Sheree Buckman. I really want to wrap up the last few episodes we've been talking about because I actually specifically this month for October had put a collection of episodes together. And it's very intentional with the topics we've been talking about because we started this month talking about our shadow selves and what that means. It's the hidden parts of ourselves that we don't like to talk about, or really we aren't even aware of, or like to bring that awareness to, that we haven't accepted. And talking about our limitations that we've created for ourselves, stopping us from living our best lives into the dark night of the soul, of having these transformative experiences to allow us to grow and evolve and to learn, to our last episode last week, which was finding courage. I put these all here because going from our shadow selves and then into the episode I'm going to say the topic today, which is about merging our light and our dark selves. Again, it's the light self and then the shadow self, and how do we merge them? Because we spoke about what it was to have a shadow self, and I couldn't properly explain it without the other episodes within, because it is a buildup and all that. And I believe that you have to have some of that foundation of the information of, again, the limitations that we set for ourselves, especially, again, because we have these shadow sides and we have these parts of ourselves that we hold so much shame over. Not just shame, but maybe some of it's regrets. It is, we don't even acknowledge certain parts of ourselves because we don't want to be judged by it, or maybe we have been judged by it. And so now we feel like we have to bring shame over it. And then it was about understanding deeper meanings of some of these hard lessons that we're learning. And that's what I put in kind of with the dark night of the soul. And it's not just about hardships. Those are about the big ones that we feel when we look back on it, about how it has rocked our world and how things really changed from those moments. But now it's kind of looking at from that is that we started scraping the surface and getting into those hard topics of our deeper selves. And now it's kind of, how do we rise from the ashes? How do we rise from the ashes into the self that we have been wanting to become? And maybe we don't even have a vision of what that looks like, but we know there's a yearning of another way to be. Because the way we have been living in our life, the way that we feel constantly, because there's anxiety and there is all this pressure or depression, we just know that we don't want to live the way we're living and feel the way that we do. Well, that's probably why you're on this journey and here listening now and been following along, because your intuition is trying to lead you on the path of gaining the information you need to keep going on your path to find the best way you can to thrive in your life. And that's what this is about. Because in order to get to that stage, to get to that point of finding peace within yourself, peace within your life, and living in more joy than having moments of sorrow or depression, again, anxiety, stress, all of those things, which, yes, we're human and those, it enters our life. But it doesn't have to be constant. It could be just moments, fleeting moments where we have that, and then it goes away because now we can manage and we can understand these pieces. And that's what this is about. I want to help you understand what it is and maybe teach you how do we merge those sides to create that peace for ourselves. Because in all of it, when we're talking about merging your shadow self with your light self, or the self that you take pride in, right? We all have aspects of ourselves that we take a lot of pride in, and maybe it's your kindness, or maybe it's because you're funny, or it's because you're really smart, or you are able to do certain things other people can't do. Whatever it is, sometimes we have these really good aspects that we love to shine, or that we love to talk about, we love to get compliments on, or want people to see. But we are not all of that. We're not all kindness. We're not. And it's the point of wrapping our head around it and knowing that our inner selves and the inner dialogue, because some of us are very judgmental. That's okay. Own it. That's the thing, because every single one of us, we have the light and we have the dark. Now it's just own it. Because there shouldn't be any shame in that. Because if we were all out there and we stopped holding secrets and we just all said the things that we just really are, just laid it all on the table, we would see that every single one of us, we are all equally light and dark. We all are. But we like to hide it so much. And we have all this shame. And so let's start laying it on the table. And I'm telling you, when you do this, and this is a process that I've gone through, and this is why I'm talking about it. And it's a process I still go through. I still struggle too with balancing this out and merging this light and dark. But I've gotten really far into it. I've gotten to a really good place where I have so much more pride and I have so much more passion and happiness in who I am. And guess what? Not everybody likes that. There are aspects about myself and I don't hide it. Yes, it's sometimes when I said, like, I'm a kind person. I believe that. And people have told me I'm an extremely kind person. Yes, that is true. But I also can be selfish. I can also control matters. And that's a huge lesson for myself. I like to control things. So I've been trying to let that go and let other people take it, take the reins. And even though it's not the way that I would do it or how I want done. And that absolutely, there are so many different points in my life where I acted certain ways or did certain things. But at that time, that's just what I knew. I didn't know any better. And so let's start looking at it from a different aspect, from a different perspective. Let's look at our aspects from a different perspective, because they're all pieces of ourselves. And whether these are aspects that you had temporarily, because maybe it's a past point and we've grown and we've evolved past that, or if we're currently still looking through it and they're long-term ingrained pieces of ourselves. Okay, let's go through it. Because your self-worth comes from accepting yourself on all levels. We're talking about all the aspects. It is coming to term with your duality, because that is the whole point of this experience. The whole point of this human experience, of the soul having a human experience, is about duality, because we don't have it on the other side. I always say the other side, outside of this experience. And this is, again, through my information and wisdom that has come through from connecting and with loved ones and with clients and in my own meditations. And so this is my belief. Take what feels right for you. But in my understanding of what I have gained in this knowledge and wisdom is that we are meant to do both, to have the duality. What do we do with both of it? Right? Because on the other side, it is love. There are no secrets. We don't have bodies. There's no shame. None of those low vibrating, heavy emotions. We don't have that over there. And so we want to know what we would do if we had it. But that's the point of this experience, is to have this tremendous amount of love and joy and excitement and passion and all of those beautiful things, but also having all of these hardships and grief and loss and all of those things that we don't want to feel, because we can't appreciate one without the other. We couldn't truly know it, and we couldn't grow from it without it. And so it is now about finding balance in all aspects of ourself. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about our light and our dark. This is about the good and the bad, the human and the soul. This is about the masculine and feminine energy and our weaknesses and strengths. It's finding the balance, because we're not just one. We are not just one, because we are made to be perfectly imperfect. I've said it before. Perfection does not exist. That is a very high bar of an expectation that is never going to be filled, and that's going to create a lot of anxiety. It doesn't exist. You will never be perfect. Because first of all, the perfect, and it's the same thing with normal. I don't like either of those words, because it is going to be different for every single person, because your definition of it will be very different. Because it's what you accept and what your expectations and what it's what you have ingrained in yourself from what you've been taught and what you've absorbed throughout your lifetime. And so the first step, and I want to help you through this. So I do. I'm gonna break this down into steps of things to really start thinking about as you are learning to merge your light and your dark self. And so your first step here is about accepting every single aspect of yourselves. Yes, easier said than done. Totally get it. I'm in it. I know. I absolutely know. But it is about coming to the awareness of it. Let's have the awareness, because that is the first step, having awareness and putting the intent, right? So we have awareness and we're going to have intent of, okay, I'm in a place where I want to learn how to accept all these aspects of myself. Even what we believe or have been taught that are bad. Because that is a big step in itself to start weeding through there and start weeding through your beliefs. And this is a part of that process, of what I've called the awakening process. And if you're listening and you are going through these healing versions, like, right? So if you're in the middle of this and learning about your shadow self and learning to remove these limitations and finding that courage to step out and be yourself, you are in an awakening process. It's just what I call it. That's the label I put on it. You can put whatever label you do. You can just call it the self-healing journey. Fill in the blank. That's fine. But within this frame of time, you are going through all of, you got to go through the false beliefs. It's all the beliefs that you have been told and taught throughout the history of your life since infancy, and pulling out the ones that you know that aren't meant for you. It's like, oh, I've been taught this, but it brings me anxiety. I've never truly believed it. I always thought maybe I was wrong because I believe in something else. Okay, start pulling that out and start realizing, okay, these aren't my beliefs. This isn't mine. This isn't mine. And then find your own truths. But every single aspect of yourself, like we were talking about, the positive and the good, right? Positive and good, and the bad and the negative. It is. And let me put an example here just so everybody's on the same page as me. Again, as we're talking about the light and the dark, the good and the bad part of ourselves. So for example, for me, it would be, I hold a positive trait. Again, I talked about my kindness. That's a positive trait. My kindness and this unconditional love that I have. But on a negative aspect of what I call my part of my shadow self is this need of control. I absolutely do. I have this need of control where sometimes I try to overstep or talk over people because I feel that I have a better way of doing it. And while in my mind I might think this might be a good thing, it's really not. And this might not be the best example. I've got a lot of shadow sides. It's just what's popping up in my mind right now. But this is a huge piece for me. And it's a huge lesson of my life, is this control factor of always trying to control things. I can do it better, so do it my way, right? And so these are two pieces, but they're both equally a part of me. And the thing is I can't say that I'm not controlling, or I can make excuses like I just tried to do and just caught myself. I totally did try to make an excuse as I'm describing it, saying, but I'm just trying to help. Okay, stop it. I'm going to own it right now. I'm stopping myself. I saw that. And this is a part of that process too. I said it out loud and I recognized it. I'm not going to give an excuse for it. I'm just going to call it for what it is. Now I have this need of control, right? So I have this need of control, whether I'm not sure what it is, maybe rooted within, yes, it's rooted from my survival, from my childhood. And I know where that's rooted. It is part of the instability of my childhood. So if I can take control of things, it's also being a very big empath. If I can take control of things and even out the field, so no one, we don't have any big emotional outbursts or anything like that, I can manage and we can keep things nice and tight and in control, right? But I'm draining myself in there. I have to come to terms. These are me. It is me. And the thing is that even if one of these, right? So let's go here to kindness for a second. I said kindness is a positive aspect of myself. But the thing is, every single aspect can be both positive and negative. So how does kindness turn into a negative, you ask? Well, actually, it absolutely can be in a negative. If you are so kind, you don't have boundaries and you're giving and giving and giving, where people are taking, taking and taking, and then it's draining you. So, because then you don't have the boundaries and you don't have a place where you're able to fill yourself back up. So it can go another direction when there's too much of once. So too much of one side of it. So the key is, like I've said in just about everything, and it's the truth, it's balance. It's balancing those aspects out and knowing when one needs to come up and the other. It's how we are balancing ourselves. Because we can't, if we were all that light aspects, all those positive attributes of ourselves, again, we couldn't possibly put the emphasis on it or know what it's like without having the negative. Just like we said with our experiences. How can you know love and joy and that beautiful excitement and passion if you didn't have the opposite? It's the duality. You wouldn't know. That's the whole point of us in this. It's our duality. And we've been taught to put so much shame on it. Stop it. I'm telling myself that too. Don't worry. I'm telling you, but I'm telling myself because I still have to remind myself constantly. But I'm in the awareness. So that was the step one, is accepting every single aspect of ourselves. Step two is to have empathy for yourself. Absolutely. It's probably one of the hardest things is this, right? It is, I can't believe I just did that. And then because maybe I acted on my control factor and again, I interrupted a conversation because I know better and I'm like, we're going to do it this way. My poor husband. Whatever it may be. But instead of getting really upset with myself, like, I know better. Why did I do that? And you start yelling at yourself or whatever negative talk you do for yourself, it's stop. Okay. You know what? Today I caught myself. Sheree, you're doing great. Sheree, you did something more today than you did yesterday, which means you caught yourself and you can apologize for it. Good for you. We're going to try again later. We're going to try again and we're going to keep trying and we're going to get there. So now it is having a little bit of empathy for yourself. And to me, this just came up too. It's always going back at your older self too. Because I don't know about you guys. There was a time where I would look back at my past self and I'd be really embarrassed. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. That old Sheree. Woo! A lot of impulse issues, whatever it may be. Oh my goodness. And of course, I would have these negative thoughts about it. And I wouldn't have a lot of empathy for the past me. And be like, man, she should have known better. Right? So we have that talk. But now is that empathy, when I have more empathy for myself, I actually do not see my past self that way. I actually see my past self, when I look at my past self, as a child, as my child. It's looking at that younger version of myself and saying, you didn't know any better. And that was an experience to learn from. You're growing. You made a mistake. And guess what? And I get to say now is, thank you. Thank you to my past self for having that experience, because now me, this new me, gets to look at it and say, okay, I learned that lesson. I know what to do or not do again in the future. So let's have empathy and looking at it in a different way. The third step, well, I did three fingers. The third step here is actually about adjusting your expectations. Oh, these expectations. This also goes back with the limits episode 2. So we have created these expectations, whether it's both sides. Like we have created our own expectations of how we should be living and acting, as well as meeting the expectations of family, friends, society, whatever it may be. Oh, that is so heavy. Even just thinking about that. This was huge for me. Thinking about this, I feel like a caged animal. Not just a caged animal. I feel like a caged animal just weighted down so heavy. I can feel all that weight on my shoulders again, just thinking about it. And this is a powerful adjustment. And yes, this is going to take some time. But in this, remember, this cage that is built around for that and these expectations is of your creation. It is 100% your creation. Even if people around you have put up the walls or suggested it, you're the only one who keeps it up. Because you are allowing people to put these expectations on you. Yes, I know, right? Especially if you were in the beginning stages of this and just the thought of it is terrifying. Be like, I couldn't tell them no. Didn't say it was going to be easy. But you are the only one in control of you. You are the only one who gives other people the power to have control over you. So it's about taking it back. And it is about adjustments in your own mind. This is about adjustments for yourself. It is to realize and release the preconceived expectations on how we should act, we should look, we could think, believe, or be. And that's huge. And I will tell you, and it comes to this example for me personally, is when I say came out of the spiritual closet, that was mine, right? So when I put myself out there and I really told everybody about this version of me that I started accepting because I knew I felt it. It was so, I loved it. I felt all this pressure coming off. I felt this new person because I was allowing myself to believe in something that not a lot of people around me did or got. And there's still a lot of people that don't understand what I do, even thinking it's on the opposite. And I'm totally digressing and I feel it happening, right? Light and love, this is where we're at. You obviously know, you're listening. So I'm going to stop giving those pieces there. But anyway, this was a huge moment for myself to put myself out there. And it was very scary. And yes, and maybe I wasn't fully accepted by everybody. No one lashed out. I didn't have anything like that. It was just quiet. If someone didn't agree, they were just quiet. But the amount of people who embraced and rooted for me, I never expected. I never expected to have so many people back me up. And it wasn't about who I was or what I'm doing. Maybe some people, they were really excited about that, maybe. But it was about they saw how brave I was to put myself out there, to embrace myself. And they loved me for that. And not only that, I've had so many people tell me, you've inspired me to embrace myself or to speak my truths. So when you're doing that and putting yourself out, that's why we had to talk about having, finding courage, because all of this does. Healing yourself means so much courage because yes, you have to go deep down. Number one, you're going into the deep parts of your trauma. You are also allowing vulnerability, which is one of the scariest things that we can allow, is putting down all of those walls, right? You're also stripping down all the things that you've been told and finding your own truths, what we just talked about just a few minutes ago. But your truths will leave you in a feeling of peace. There's a knowing behind it. That's when you know it's yours. That's when you know when you start pulling up all these pieces, especially, and you'll start feeling this when you're really going through and weeding through your false beliefs and those truths and finding what yours are. You're going to be listening to a lot of people in conversations, and you're going to be hearing their opinions. You're going to be hearing a lot about their beliefs, and you start hearing all of it, and you're absorbing. And so you're taking each one, and you're like, does that feel right for me? And it is. It's kind of like holding it close to your heart. Does it feel soft? Does it feel really connected and get you excited? Like, oh, that feels so right. Then that's yours. But if it doesn't, and you're just like, ugh, I kind of don't like that feeling, feels a little heavy, and you're just feeling, well, anxious or whatever it may be, then that is not yours. But it's just respecting other people's, because we're going to have very different truths, right? So now it comes down to rewiring your brain, because that's what it is. Yes, it's replacing these thought patterns. And I'm sure I have talked about it before, and we're getting into it again. So we need to really go into this. And how do we do this? Okay, it's going to take a while. But again, that awareness is your key. This happens to me constantly, and I still do it. I have so much awareness going on in my mind, to the point where whenever I feel a judgment coming through, so if I find a judgment where I all of a sudden catch myself, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if I passed one recently. I'm totally sure I have. I go to the gym a lot. I'm at the gym a lot. And so there may have been a judgment. I've been finding I have more positive judgments, but when I have a negative one come through, whether it's about myself or whether it's about somebody else, it doesn't matter. But I will catch it. And then instead of casting blame somewhere else, because I absolutely don't do that. Not anymore. Trust me, I used to. But I've gotten into this habit of now when I have this judgment, I go inward, because I don't go outward and say like, well, it's your fault. This is why I have this judgment. It's no one's fault. It's mine. It's all mine. It's all in my mind. So I have to go in there and I have to say, well, why do I have this thought? Why did I pass that judgment? And then I go in and I go in and I keep going, asking myself all the questions. So when I get to the next level and I'll find the next little piece, then okay, well, why do I have this thought? And I go deeper and I go deeper. And usually I can find it has to do with my own insecurities. So for a long time, I had, a lot of my judgments came with weight because that was one of my own insecurities. And so when I saw someone at one point, and it was very similar, it was exactly my own insecurities that what I would find. I would find, and I kept going in, I would go in and be like, Sheree, that's yours. Actually, I think this person in front of me is beautiful. Doesn't matter what their weight is, but I found myself, I was throwing out those mirror images of myself and I was bringing it back. It's like why did I just forget the name of those things you throw out and they come back to you? Yes, I know it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't form the word. And I hope you're yelling it out and right now while you're listening. Boomerang. Ah, thanks. I did it. My brain worked. Those boomerangs. That's what it's like. To me, your judgments that you cast are boomerangs. And so you cast a judgment, you throw it out because you're like throwing it at another person. I can't believe this person would go out wearing that. Oh my gosh. And it comes back and it hits you. And then it's an expression of your own insecurity. So when we go in and we find those pieces, and that's where that empathy comes into. Oh, okay. And for me, especially during that time, and still sometimes I find myself, because I'm human, guess what? It happens because I have ego too, and I'm working on all these. And guess what? I don't have shame over it. I'm not going to hide it because I have judgments. Absolutely, I have judgments. It doesn't happen as often or as big, but absolutely, I see them, and then I'm going and I'm rewiring. And so that's why I don't have as big judgments as I had before, because I go in and I've been doing the rewiring work. And so when I'm going in, I'm giving myself some love and sympathy. Okay, I see it. And what I do immediately is try to separate another person from my judgment. So if I had a judgment about what somebody else was wearing or something like that, I immediately release it. Because what I do in my mind is I send them a kind thought. You know what? Good for you for going out and wearing that. You look confident. You look great. And sometimes I will go over and actually express a compliment to the person. If it so arises, because if I'm thinking the compliment, everybody deserves to hear it. So whatever it may be, I put that there, even if it's just in my mind, and I let it go out, because that severs the energy towards another person. Because I don't ever want another person to feel that energy. They're dealing with enough stuff. They don't need my judgments on them. So that's how I pull it back. Put that out there. Well, guess what? You did. That was a massive rewire, because there you just had awareness and you took accountability. I did. I took accountability and I'm pulling it back. And now it's saying, okay, going into myself. You know what? I had to tell myself I was beautiful, because it was something that I was taught, and there was a lot of false beliefs that I was brought up with. And there were I had a warped, different way of thinking, and I had to really work on that and understand what beauty was, because it was easy for me to see it in other people. Oh, so easy. But for myself, it was so much harder, because again, it came with the limitations and the expectations and again, all those beliefs, all those things, right, wrapped in. And I had to give myself some empathy, some love, and I had to talk to myself as I would someone else I love. And that's a big reminder. And then you replace those thoughts. Sometimes you have to lie to yourself before you believe it. So I had to tell myself all the different things. You know what? Sheree, you are beautiful. You are working on, and to think, I was always trying to put myself there that you are working to become the better version of yourself, of self-love. And I wasn't talking in a physical manner. I had to change my thoughts. It was my thoughts that were caught. And so I had to learn to love all of those pieces of myself, and the ones I didn't like and the ones I pressed judgment of. So again, this is my example of learning how to rewire your brain. But whatever it is for you, and maybe, I don't know if it's just harsh judgments, whether it's for yourself or other people, it doesn't even have to be judgments. But when we shift from seeking acceptance from the outside world, we can emerge from the safety of our suppressed nature. Now we're going to allow ourselves. So while we work on the internal struggles, always also make sure that you are working on not allowing the judgment of others to affect you also. So remember, it goes two ways. But that's the duality of it. We express judgments, and it can be harsh and giving, and it always comes and stems into our own insecurities. And then we have to look at that, and then we have to release, again, those judgments of other people into our own insecurities. See, it's a two-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword there. And so when we work on one, we are actually working on the other. And so when we start taking accountability for our thoughts and actions and all of that, and we're pulling that back, well, then we're learning that we can start to do the same thing from allowing others to dictate and pass judgment on us. They're going to pass judgment. You can't stop them from that. But it's how far you're allowing them to dictate how you live your life and how it affects you. And so the more we start building in and working on that inner dialogue and rewiring our brain, we are working on letting those pieces go. And we start standing a little bit more truer in our own bodies, in our own minds, in our own, again, merging both of those aspects, the light and the dark, and we're pulling them together. And the thing is about this too, is that this is a very long journey. So yes, while you start this, it is about, start just having awareness, and it's a practice. I just had this conversation with someone the other day too. They're like, but how do you catch yourself? Because I set the intention to do so. And I was ready to start taking that accountability for myself. So it definitely started happening, and I'd catch myself all the time. But when I caught myself, I had to take a moment in that moment. So all of a sudden I caught myself having an attitude about something, or judgment, or I felt myself getting angry. And again, I'm an empath too, so I have a lot of things to work through. But I used to always look around me first. I always used to look out around me first, like, whose was that? Who's angry? Who's projecting all of that gross stuff on me? That's not the first place I look anymore. I look at myself. I always go inside first. What am I feeling right now? Did something just happen where I'm triggered? Okay, do I have triggers going? Yes or no? And then I go here and I'm like, okay, did I express a judgment? Did that trigger me somewhere? And I'm going through my own list, and that's what I'm doing, going through my list. And I'm hoping you'll do the same thing. Because once I go through my entire list, and if nothing checks off internally, then I will go on the external for the empath part, because I do pick it up. But I'm going to take accountability first before I am blaming or going on the outside of that. But I do want to explain, I love this. It just came to me this morning as I was starting the outline for this episode. And I love this little analogy that I came up with, because this is how, to me, what the journey has been like in merging my light and dark self. And it is about accepting myself and building my self-worth. And at first it's the whole like stages of friendship, right? So for me, or different friendships, I should put, it's like making friends, or trying to learn how to make friends with someone that you were taught to hate or to shame or to like even be repulsed by. And at first, maybe they become that really shady friend, or the one that you keep a secret. Like, we don't even really talk, but okay. We don't talk about them, but they're there. So this is kind of that part of yourself. It's the avoidance and maybe the embarrassment. So maybe we're just becoming aware, right? But we still have this avoidance and this embarrassment about it. So we're just kind of, we hide that one. That one kind of still hides in the closet. We don't let anybody know we're interested in any way, shape, or form with that, right? This other version. And then once we start working on it, we have that awareness, and then we're going to start going into the acquaintance stage. Well, now people may know there's an acquaintance. We'll say hi in public. We have this stage. And to me, this is about acknowledgement. This is the acknowledgement stage. So now they've become an acquaintance. And then you get to friendship. And this is about acceptance. And now we're publicly hanging out, right? This is me. It's my light side and my dark side. And a lot of my friends who know me, yeah, it can definitely be public sometimes when I have both sides out. And it's a lot. To me, my sides fuel the fire. They fuel a fire, and it gets really big and out there. It's a lot. But yeah, so you start your friendship. We're out and loud now. We're acceptance, and there we are. But that's not the full merge. That's not the end game. The end game is now it's like your soulmate. This is your soulmate. This is now a part of yourself. And you couldn't even imagine living life without this other half. You couldn't even imagine. Like, this is it. This is the merge. When you can see that, and now you're like, I couldn't even live without the other half. So this is true. This is like, I can't let my dark self go because my dark self is a part of myself. It also makes who I am. And yes, while maybe sometimes I have to manage the different parts of myself, absolutely. Because again, it is about balance, and it is a game in that, in the sense of it's an active. But that's the end game. It's like I can't live without that part of myself that wants to take control, because I know what that is and where it comes from. Because again, I've been working on this for many, many years. So I've done a lot of work now. I know that comes from my childhood and trauma. Now, with that being said, that was survival. I needed that part. It is how I survived. It is how I brought balance in my life during that time that was out of balance. So now I'm in this stage. And so that now it's becoming like a darker side because I don't need it. So that's why it's like, okay, well, now you're still a part of me because I still need you sometimes. So, but we're going to adjust it, and it's just fine tuning those aspects. And it is what it is. And see that. And so this would be a great tool if any of you wanted to try to go a little bit further on this, is start a journal and start writing down a list and have your light and your dark and think of these aspects. And yeah, your shadow, go to the shadow self episode. It'll really list more of what that is. Your dark side is really the things that you feel shame about, embarrassment, things we try to hide that we're not proud of. All of those, that goes in one column. The other one is the things we're really proud of, the ones that we get compliments on, the ones that we're excited to tell people about. That goes on that side. And honestly, if you're being really honest, they're probably going to be very equal columns if you can be that honest with yourself. And then it's just about, well, how can I bring that balance and how do I merge it? And try to understand where those pieces of yourself came from and why they were so turned up at one time. And can you turn them down? And can you find a positive out of the negative and a negative out of the positive? You should be able to, if we can be honest. And that's where it's at. And just remember, you are human and you are a product of the experiences you've had in your life. So no matter what you've brought, the pieces that you have that maybe you're not so proud of, it was created for a reason. Please understand that. And this human experience is about living in duality and experiencing life in all ends of the spectrum. All ends. We've talked about that. You are not alone in these experiences. We are all in it. We all have these pieces. You are perfectly imperfect exactly the way you are. But if you don't feel happy, if you don't feel peace, then you are worth doing this work for. It is hard and it is a journey. But I'm telling you, as you get through it, and I'm telling you from experience, it is so worth it. I've never been happier and more at peace, not only just with myself, but in the relationships within life. Yeah, life happens and I can get a little overwhelmed, but it's only fleeting moments. And I realize I have created it all and I can go in and make those adjustments for myself. And so you can too. So until next time, you beautiful soul, be kind to yourself.